Lavos, which is an international law firm in the practice group Technology, Media, and Telecommunications, and founded lastly my own law firm. I have quite a lot of experience in international data protection matters and IT contract drafting and negotiation, and I'm looking forward to talking about cloud computing and data protection in the EU within the next 45 minutes. The presentation will have three major parts. The first one is a general introduction to the EU Data Protection Directive and relevant terms for cloud computing in that directive. The second part is about the requirements that the EU directive states for cloud computing contracts and in relation to data security measures. And the last part concerns the data exports to third countries, which is a special requirement if companies in the EU export data to companies outside the European Union. So this is in particular relevant for all cloud computing providers that are established in the US, India, or somewhere else outside the EU. So let me first give you a short introduction to the EU Data Protection Directive. When I'm talking about directive, then I refer to the EU Data Protection Directive 95/46 EC on the protection of individuals with regard to the processing of personal data and on the free movement of such data. That's the official title of that directive. There is another directive dealing with data protection in the European Union. This is the directive with number 9766 concerning the processing of personal data and the protection of privacy in the telecommunications sector. This directive is mainly addressed to providers of telecommunication networks and services, but this directive is not relevant for cloud providers, since in a typical cloud computing environment, the customer is responsible for the interconnection, internet connection to the server of the provider. So we will focus here on Directive 95/46. The Data Protection Directive creates a harmonized framework for the national data protection laws in the European Union. But as a directive, it is not directly binding upon companies or individuals. Rather, it obliges the member states in the European Union to enact respective national legislation and transform the provisions of the directive into their national laws. Directive leaves room to the member states for different implementations, so the wording of the national laws are not mere translations of the directive. For example, the national requirement to notify or register data processing with their national data protection authority differs considerably throughout the European Union. So the implementation, the various jurisdictions vary. However, the directive is a good document to look at to have a general understanding of the data protection landscape in the European Union. In addition to the different implementations into national laws, the terms of the directive, for example, on personal data, are interpreted by local authorities and courts in the various member states differently. So, again, data protection laws in the European Union looks different. So let's have a look at the topics that the Data Protection Directive covers and that are relevant for cloud computing contracts. First, the directive contains some definition on important terms. We will have a look at terms that are relevant for cloud computing in the next slide, because terms like personal data or processing are important to understand how the directive affects providers and customers of cloud services. The directive also contains